the last thing we need to look at is correctly tensioning the chain. Now how we do this, well, there's a couple of different ways, but we're going to show you each one. And for a petrol model, what we're going to do is first of all, always check the tension in the middle of the chain, because this is the slackest point. Now what we're looking for is a couple of different things. One is that when you lift the middle of the chain, and we always grab in between the cutters just so you don't cut your fingers, and that is when we lift it up, what we want to see is not a big gap between here. Something where you can slip through a piece of paper, 1 mil, is a good indication of good chain tension. However, there's a couple other things that we need to look at. And one is if it snaps back like a rubber band. So what we don't want is if we're lifting that up and letting it go, is it just to fall down, because if it falls down, it's too loose. But one of the best ways to test, especially out in the field if the chainsaw is being used and it's hot, is to do what we call run the chain. And by doing this, what we're going to do is always in a forward motion, because we don't want to get anywhere near the cutters, we're going to run the chain. And what we want it to do is we want it to stop when I stop. And what I mean by that is I'm going to actually show you a loose chain and a tight chain. So first of all, if I just undo this a little bit and I loosen the chain, and what you'll probably notice is that it starts to hang a little bit and gets a little bit loose. Now, if it was that loose, and that's probably a little bit drastic, so I'll bring it up a little bit more. If I'm to run the chain now, it continues to spin. Now this is obviously the sign of a very loose chain, which is very dangerous. Now if I tighten it up way too tight, when I go to run the chain, I can't physically run it. It takes a lot of pressure, and that's going to tell me that it's way too tight. So what we said before, back that off, make sure you can pick it up in the middle and it has a nice snap back like a rubber band. Run that chain, and if it stops when you do, we know we're at a pretty good tension. At that point, we just want to tighten these up as tight as we possibly can. Recheck the chain, and then we're ready for use. But when it comes to a cordless or a tool-free tensioner, it's a little bit different. So let me take you through it. So first of all, chain break back. We then loosen this section right here, which allows us to get to the chain tension. And you can see there, the chain moving up and down. Now what we always want to make sure when checking the tension is that the bar is in an upright position. So we certainly don't want it down, we want it up. So when it's up like so, and if you had a notice here in the vise, that's exactly what that's doing for me, is as I'm holding this upright, I can now tension the chain in exactly the same way. Check the middle, make sure that it's only just got a gap between the tang and the bar, and then it snaps back like a rubber band. Tighten that up nice and tight, and we're ready to go. So how often do we need to check the chain tension? Well, very simply, before and during every use. Because while you're using the chainsaw, it's going to get hot. And this means that the chain can stretch. So we want to make sure the tension's correct at all times. And just another tip for you, and that is when you've finished using your chainsaw, it's a good idea to back off the tension, because that way, if the chain does contract, it means it's not going to put stress and load on the bar and the chain itself, and you can store that chainsaw away, ready to go next time. So for more tips and tricks, go to our how-to videos on ryobi.com.au or check out our YouTube channel.
RYOBI, a cut above.